Today I'm going to be showing you how to alter men's dress pants. We're going to be expanding the waistline of these pants. The nice thing about men's dress pants is you do the expansion from the middle of the back waistline, so it's very easy and something that most people can do from home. Your first step is to remove the little stitching that is keeping the waistband held down. There's little X marks on this pair of pants, so I'm going to use my seam ripper and I'm going to just break through a couple of those little stitches that are kind of holding that waistband down. So I'm going to break the first one right now, and you can see that I can peel the waistband up a lot easier. Okay, there's a couple more I need to remove. There's one right here. I'm now at the center of the waistband, and I'm going to take out two more that are just tacking the waistband down. So now you can see on the waistband that it's a little looser. I can lift it up now. Okay, now that you have the waistband tacking stitches pulled out, you can lift up the waistband, and you will notice that on this pair of men's dress pants, there's a good 1 inch seam allowance on either side of this center seam. That is where we're going to expand the waistline. So our next step is to take this seam out. So I'm going to work on removing the stitches with a seam ripper to open up this seam a little bit. You can see I'm starting to do that, and I'll go down quite a ways. Right now I'm far enough down. I've taken out enough of the stitching that I'm not past the bottom of the waistline, but I'm far enough that I can open out the seam allowance and match up raw edges. So I'm not going to go any further of removing the seam just yet. We'll do that a little bit later. So right now what I need to do is remove the tacking stitch that's right here that's keeping this folded in a triangle. I'm going to do that on this side, and I'm going to do it on this side. Okay, so I removed those tacking stitches, so now I can flip those triangles up, and I am going to match up the raw edges at the very top of the pants and put a pin in perpendicular to the seam. And then I'm going to go down the pants and I'm going to match up the raw edges and continue adding pins perpendicular to the seam. Up, and you're going to pin all the way down to the crotch where it merges and gets close together. So now that I've got that seam pinned all the way down, I'm now going to sew a new seam that's just close to this raw edge, and that's going to give me the expansion. This seam is still in place almost all the way down except for up here where I took the stitching out, okay? So this part is separated, but the rest of this seam line is still in place. I'm going to use that as my guide on the when I sew my new seam. I'm going to do an equal distance from the original seam line to my new seam line on my sewing machine. That way I keep the same shape that the original manufacturer created when they made the pants. Right now my pants are completely inside out with my seam pinned. I find this seam easier to sew if you take one of the legs and push it through the hole so that it's right side out. Then take that leg and put it inside the other leg. Now you have a clean, easy access to this seam that you're going to be sewing, and none of the other legs, pant legs, are in the way. They're all bunched up inside one of the pant legs. Okay, for ease of sewing, so I don't have to mark a line or use a seam guideline on my machine stitch plate, I'm going to line the raw edge of my fabric up with the very edge of the presser foot. I'm also going to move my needle over to the right a couple of positions to make the seam allowance even more narrow. I'm going to backstitch at the beginning, and I'm going to sew all the way down here into the crotch area. Okay, now I'm getting close to the crotch area. This pin shows where we're basically almost at the peak of the crotch. The seam allowance is very, very narrow here. So I'm going to start merging my line in and angling it in until I meet up with the original seam. And that's where I'm going to backstitch. And I'm finished. Okay, now we've sewn our new seam closer to the raw edge, and we're going to go ahead and use the seam ripper to take out the original seam that was in the pants from the manufacturer. And we need to do this carefully not to cause any rips or tears in the fabric. This is where we're going to remove the original seam, being careful not to cut into the fabric at all. And I'll keep doing this all the way down the pants, into all the way to the spot where our new seam line matched up with the original seam line at the crotch. Okay, now that you have the original seam taken out, you'll see that you have a V-shaped crease going down to the crotch. When you launder or wash, dry clean the pants, then that should go away. So right now, your new seam is on the inside of the waistband. You can fold it back over and make sure that your seam is laying flat. Make sure this seam is open and laying flat. Fold it over, the waistband back over, and then you need to tack your waistband back down. You can hand stitch it like the ones that we removed at the very beginning, but I'm going to do it on the machine very easily by just quickly stitching in the ditch right here, stitching in the ditch right here, and stitching in the ditch right here so that it just tacks down the waistband on the inside.